Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight into the invisible, high-stakes physics of aviation safety. We're going to look way past that standard pre-flight safety brief and get into the exact mechanics and the incredible engineering that quietly keeps you safe in the sky.
All right, picture the scene. The cabin is perfectly quiet. The folks around you are reading, maybe zoning out to a movie, or just staring out at that endless sea of clouds below. You are completely comfortable, totally at ease. You are flying at 35,000 feet.
Then you hear a crack, sharp, sudden, coming right from the glass next to you. Now, human instinct, it screams at you to panic. But what is the actual physical reality of this exact moment?
So what actually happens if an airplane window breaks? Well, to answer that, we've got to look past our knee-jerk fears and look directly at the science. And I promise you, the reality of this is vastly more fascinating than it is terrifying. But to understand the precise chain of events that kicks off after that crack, we first need to wrap our heads around the invisible forces at work all around you when you're up in the air.
It all comes down to our first core concept: cabin pressure versus atmospheric pressure. Inside the aircraft, you're chillin' in dense, breathable air. It is literally engineered to keep you as perfectly comfortable as if you were just standing on the ground. But outside, up at cruising altitude, that atmospheric pressure is unbelievably low. The air is dangerously thin, utterly unbreathable. You're essentially sitting in a highly pressurized bubble, rocketing through a near vacuum. And that stark contrast creates a massive pressure differential. Physics tells us that high-pressure environments desperately want to equalize with low-pressure ones. Imagine all those tightly packed air molecules inside the cabin just aggressively pushing to get out into that empty space. That tension, the artificial cabin atmosphere forcefully pushing against the near vacuum outside, well, that is the constant state of your flight. Nature desperately wants to balance things out, and that immense physical force pushing outward is literally what defines the entire structural engineering of the aircraft. But before we break down the exact moment a window fails, we absolutely have to separate Hollywood dramatization from verified aviation facts. We've all seen the movies, right? A window breaks, and suddenly people are flying across the cabin in this prolonged, chaotic disaster. But the verified, science-based reality is entirely different, and it's far more controlled. We gotta toss out that cinematic exaggeration so we can actually appreciate the meticulous engineering behind a real decompression event. So let's look at exactly what happens physically in a slow-motion, chronological reconstruction of a decompression. 0 seconds. The window fails. And immediately, that pressure differential we just talked about takes over. Half a second, rapid air expansion. The pressurized air inside the cabin violently rushes out through that localized opening to equalize with the atmosphere outside. It's loud, it's incredibly windy, and the temperature inside drops in a flash. 1 second, pressure equalizes. Yep, the dramatic, forceful rush of air is mostly over that fast. So why is that single second of equalization absolutely crucial? Well, think about that number, 35,000. At a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, the outside air is unbreathable. Humans simply cannot survive without supplemental oxygen once the cabin pressure drops to match that outside atmosphere. The aircraft doesn't have minutes to react to this sudden environmental change. It has to react instantly. And that brings us to the immediate, built-in safety response designed to protect you. Step 1, highly sensitive automated sensors instantly detect that drop in cabin pressure. These sensors are wired to react in fractions of a millisecond. That's literally faster than your brain can even process the sound of the window breaking. And this instantly triggers step 2, oxygen masks rapidly deployed from the ceiling for all passengers. The whole system works completely autonomously to make sure you have a constant flow of breathable air while the cabin environment is compromised. So within moments of that window breaking, you're already protected. Now, while those automated systems are protecting you in the back, the flight crew up front is executing a highly precise, highly trained aviation procedure. Step 1, the pilots immediately secure their own oxygen masks to make sure they stay perfectly conscious and focused. Step 2, they initiate a rapid, controlled descent. Now, this is really important. This isn't some chaotic fall out of the sky. It is a deliberate, steep dive commanded by the pilots to get the plane lower as quickly as possible, which leads to step 3. The aircraft reaches a safe, breathable altitude, usually right around 10,000 feet, where the outside air pressure is safe enough for everyone on board to breathe normally. No masks required. So does a localized failure, like a broken window, mean the whole plane just tears apart? Absolutely not. Modern aviation relies on structural reinforcements that instantly isolate the damage.
It's kind of like a giant puzzle where one broken piece doesn't compromise the whole picture. The failure is completely localized, meaning the macro structural integrity of the cabin frame remains totally intact. The aircraft is massively over-engineered to easily withstand these sudden pressure changes without failing. Honestly, structurally speaking, the plane is perfectly fine.
Which leaves us with this final profound thought from our source material to wrap up today's explainer. The strange part isn't how fragile an airplane looks. It's how much engineering is quietly keeping you alive at 35,000 feet. When you really understand the massive pressure differentials, the instant oxygen deployment, and the localized structural reinforcements, you realize this isn't a disaster waiting to happen. It's a meticulously planned for event. So the next time you hear a strange creak or pop at 35,000 feet, ask yourself, are you afraid of the height, or are you just underestimating the engineering?